Hello and welcome to the Nintendo Switch Online Game Club, the show where we play through the games available on Nintendo's various NSO apps completely at random. I'm your host, Derrick, and in this episode I'm joined by the returning John Cartwright, who last played Earthbound on the show. How you doing, John?
I'm doing fab, especially because I'm with all my favorite people in one digital room. What a lovely day.
Glad to hear it. And Xeon Grassl, video producer at Nintendo Life, Earthbound fan, and preacher at the Church of Street Pass. How you doing, Xeon?
I'm doing all right. Obviously, we're not playing Earthbound this time, but the game that we are playing, I'm pretty excited about, actually.
Yeah. And as you're both likely aware, there are now over 200 games across the NSO, and while some are widely known like Super Mario Bros. And Zelda, there are some odd picks that could be considered hidden gems. We honestly don't know. So what we do is enter all those games into a randomizer, pick one, and then give our initial thoughts. And this week, the Wheel of Games has chosen Double Dragon 2, The Revenge, I believe, on NES. And what is our history with Double Dragon 2 and maybe even Double Dragon in general? Let's start with you, Xeon.
Sure. So I grew up with this one. My grandpa had an NES, and he had a big stack of games that they would pick up from different garage sales and department stores and stuff. And Double Dragon 2 was in there. And so that was my first introduction to the series, and it was a pretty good one, honestly, I think, because I think the NES version's co-op. The intro track is a banger, if I remember even too. And just recently, I was back visiting family, and we had the NES Classic hooked up. And I think Double Dragon 2 is on that, if I remember right. Or maybe it's just on Switch Online, obviously. But two of my little cousins were playing it. So this is going to be really nice revisiting this game with you guys.
That's really fun. What about you, John? What's your history with Double Dragon 2?
It's a bit of a mismatched history, to be honest. I've played the franchise a few times, but I've not really stuck with just one game that much. I remember back on the 360, there was... I don't know what game it was. It wasn't Neon, but there was a port of one of the older ones. It might have even been two. But I played that online with a friend of mine, because he was a big Double Dragon fan. So I played that until the end. But otherwise, I don't have a huge attachment to this series, but I wanna be more attached to it. So I guess this is my opportunity to do so, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Because, I'm sort of in the same boat where I've always been aware of the franchise, but I've never really played it. I just kept hearing about it. And oddly enough, my biggest exposure to this series was the old 90s cartoon. that would show up on the Saturday mornings, and I just had this habit of watching everything every cartoon that came up on Saturday mornings, and that would be one of them. And I don't remember it being amazing or anything like that, but I also learned later that it has very little to do with the actual games.
Of course, and probably just to sell some toys or something like that, right?
It was totally just that.
Do either of you remember the names of the main characters? It's like Billy and something.
It's Billy and
it's not
Jimmy.
Joel, but
Jimmy. I thought it was Jimmy.
Is it Jimmy?
I think so.
Timmy.
Because there's a joke. Wasn't it Bimmy and Jimmy or something like that? So I think.
Right.
That's mistranslated, I think, on the English version. Yeah.
Because that's the joke in River City Girls or something too, right? Is that right? Okay.
Yes, they have these Cro-Magnon man versions of the Double Dragons, and
nice.
they just look like that. That was an April Fool's joke, and they just announced that Billy and Jimmy are coming as actual players as DLC for River City Girls 2.
It's real now. Okay,
yeah, it's just
amazing.
The regular versions, oddly enough, voiced by the Game Grumps in that game. So,
oh, cool.
Wow.
Yeah. But as far as actually playing the games, I remember watching a friend play it once, but it was the original and it was only one player, so I didn't really get to try it out myself.
Oh, weird. Okay.
And it always looked kind of neat because it was one of my earliest exposures to beat 'em ups, other than the Turtles. And it seems
that Turtles are a great introduction to beat 'em ups, of course, but just a single player Double Dragon. That's interesting. Because you always think well, at least I should say I always think beat 'em ups are just fun because you get to play with them with another person, but instead you and your friend just had to watch each other play and couldn't help except for pass the controller.
That's the thing with the genre, though. When I was a kid, I played Golden Axe on my own, and I enjoyed it then. But when I go back and play Golden Axe now, I just kind of find it a bit numbing. playing. But when I'm playing with someone else,
Yeah.
it's just like the ultimate background game that you can just sort of talk while playing a beat 'em up. That's
Yeah.
kind of how I see the genre these days. Like it's just something to idly play while you get together with a friend. So it would be cool to play this with someone else. And because it's on NSO, I guess we can play with each other even.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That is true. So that could certainly be fun, and just see what it adds in. I think one of the Double Dragon games has this thing where it's like you beat the final boss and then you have to fight each other in order to see who gets the girl.
Right, yeah.
Something like that. I do know a little bit of history about this, the franchise, if only because of Mac McMuscle's retrospective on,
Nice.
like, he played through every single Double Dragon game, and ostensibly it's supposed to be a like Mad Max style future, even though I never got that visually. It just seems like, oh, it's just modern day in the city, sure, whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
And have that sort of be the backdrop for things. But I never got that sense. And I think otherwise, this was from Technos, who also did the River City games, which is why they're in River City Girls too. This was
Nice,
their
okay.
attempt to make a more American-friendly version of their beat-em-ups with River
Friendly.
City. So the Double Dragon is what they came up with.
Is Double Dragon the one where you beat up girls? Is that which I mean is what it is in the modern age. But
I don't know if this was this the one that
for
started the
games.
trend of like the dominatrix girls that you beat up in an
I feel like, yeah, there was something about that in one of the games or something. And yeah, they gave them, I don't want to say that they gave them some backstory like poison or whatever, or some way to justify it. But yeah, if Double Dragon 2 is the one, we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but as you said, we've had Poison, we've had I forget their names in Streets of Rage. Obviously, there's some in Double Dragon.
Oh, sure.
So there's a lot of beat 'em ups started like, we'll throw in some female enemies in there too. Why not? They're rough and tough gangs.
Yeah. And for the record, yeah, I think everybody should be able to beat up everyone.
It's only fair.
In my head, I was like, wait, was there some kind of, not controversy, but like some talking point, surrounding that topic with this game? But
I mean, I do know the first game starts with this small cutscene of one of the villains walking up to the girlfriend and just punching her in the stomach and then throwing her over his arms and walking away. And that's when the
oh my gosh,
thing starts. Yeah. So
Double Dragon goes hard. Wow.
yeah, they do. Post-apocalyptic. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one actually should be fun, easy. Granted, it might even get that super hard, but that's what the rewind is for. So it's
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, we
We'll-
can cheat.
yeah, we can at least see the full game pretty easily. So whether or not we need to use the rewind, I guess we'll find out. But
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we take our break to go play some Double Dragon?
I did just remember that in like 2010, maybe, like right after I got out of high school, a friend's mom was getting rid of these, like a bunch of clothes, and we got to look through her wardrobe for some reason. And because I remember specifically it was his mom's jackets, but we got a red and a blue jacket. And I kid you not, I've got photos here somewhere. We ripped the sleeves off and like cut them up and stuff, and we went as those characters for Halloween.
That's
and we weren't even
amazing.
big Double Dragon fans. We just like, I think we saw
So
the
funny.
colors and we were like, yeah, we can
Like
use that.
inspiration, we can use this.
Yeah. Maybe we were gonna do a Mega 64 style video or something. Even I don't know, because
That'd
we
be
did
cool.
stuff like that back then, but we didn't. So I don't know.
I'm just interested in seeing how many of our thoughts actually relate to this game, because we had so many floating like memories there. Like, what is actually Double Dragon 2? We're
Yeah,
gonna find
That
out.
is a good question. I have no idea. But it should be fun. And we'll be back in after a week of playing this. But for you guys, it'll be right after this.
Double Dragon 2, The Revenge. Full power for your NES. 9 incredible missions. 2-player simultaneous action. Double Dragon 2 from Acclaim. The best action game ever.
And we're back after a week of playing Double Dragon 2 The Revenge for the NES. What did we end up thinking of this early beat-em-up classic? Xeon, let's start with you.
So I think I mentioned prior that I grew up with this game. It probably honestly was like the first beat 'em up I ever played. And so I think I've always had like a soft spot for it, but it's not like I go back to it ever because I don't like it. It's a beat 'em up. You should play it 2-player with friends, and I don't really play my NES that often, or even use the NES online games, which I should. But so this is the first time I've played it in years, and at first it was really boring. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but I was just like. Within the first 5 minutes, I just like wanted to just move on to something else. Maybe it was partially because I was playing by myself, but I just did not care. And I'm thankful that it did get more interesting as the game went on, which still was very short anyways. But one of the first notes I wrote down in my notebook was just like, man, this game is so boring.
Oh my. I don't know if I expected that.
It's so nonsensical though, like as it goes on. Like I think it's like chapter one of the like the earlier levels or whatever, like you're just in a helicopter fighting a bunch of dudes and they just keep coming out of this room and like that. I love that like NES games like existed in a time where like nobody cared. You didn't need to like explain that. Sure, there were like story bumpers, but like it just there were just like 10 dudes on this helicopter ready to beat you up, and then they could just fall out the door like when it would open randomly.
Or you.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
like a set piece of the era though. That's like Uncharted 3 on the NES.
I suppose you're right, but like, well, and that you're right. That was a big helicopter. Maybe that's what I was thinking was like when you first see it. Before you get in, the helicopter looks fairly tiny. Maybe it's just because the sprite limitations on the NES. But then you get in, and it's just like this massive room that probably has a bathroom and a control room.
Turns out it's actually a TARDIS. Who knew?
Good point. Yeah. So that boringness eventually like faded away. But I think it's just those first 2 levels really suck. And actually, did either of you, do you remember if this happened in the first or in the second level? So you jump over this ledge and then you beat up some dudes, and then there's an arrow that points and it tells you to go down. And I have video of this, so I'll send it to you unless you remember this. But the arrow's pointing down and there's a big gap. So like I thought, jump in the hole. Like
oh no.
And so you jump down and there's no platform down there for you to land on. You just die immediately. And thankfully Switch Online like made it fine to rewind, but then eventually, you like when you go back up, when I rewound Prince of Persia and went back up, I realized there was like a ladder or like a beam to crawl down.
I know the exact one you're talking about because I did that too. And it's not that visible, that ladder. It kind of blends in with the environment. And
somehow I saw it because I got knocked into too many holes by enemies early on, so I was like, I'm wary of any hole. I'm not just going to jump down. So I was looking around. It's like,
wary
ladder.
of any hole.
Totally relatable. I understand.
And to be, especially if I remember correctly, the arrow actually was on the ladder itself. But that's
was it really?
It was.
It is,
yeah.
but it's like it's not like constantly pointing. It's just like beep beep beep. Okay, bye.
Because it's totally. I do remember being like on the left side of the screen, but yeah, you're right. It wasn't like. It wasn't that far over. So I'll have to go back and look and check. And when I see it pointing at the ladder, I'll be like, oh. But yeah, it to me in the moment, it felt like one of those like classic game like one of the ways to like make games harder was just like let's make this ladder hard to see so that players die and lose a life, and then it makes the game just like that tiny bit longer. But yeah, I mean I could go on about a lot of things. I wrote down a lot of notes, but I'm happy to hear what you guys thought about this game as well.
Yeah, what about you, John? How do you feel about Double Dragon 2 after this week?
I mean, I liked it more than Xeon, I think. Like, it's called Double Dragon because there's 2 of them, right? And so when you're playing on your own, it's Single Dragon, and then lots of issues
Single
prop up.
Dragon. Single Dragon's just a dating game. It's a completely different thing.
Like, in the second to last level, where those ninja dudes are like are throwing things at you that are hard to hit, there's at one point where they stun locked me. I couldn't move. They just kept hitting me. I was bouncing against the wall. I couldn't get out. If I was playing Double Dragon instead of Single Dragon, my partner could have taken care of them and freed me. But they just drained my health bar, and there's nothing I could have done about it. This definitely feels like a game that you should be playing with someone else. And I wanted to, but this was a solo John endeavor. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of moments that feel a little bit cheap if you're playing on your own, because I think it's designed for co-op play. And it can also feel a bit tedious at times. But I think the general adventure was good, though. A lot of NES games, it's like, this is level 1, this is level 2, that don't really connect contextually. Whereas there is an overarching story with this one. Like, you finish one level, and a
Yeah, there
helicopter
is.
is there, and the next level's in a helicopter. Helicopter lands, you go in the jungle, and then it feels like proper progression, which is kind of not very of the era. So it was cool to see it in that way. But yeah, I think playing this on your own definitely isn't like the way it was intended, and it isn't always fun. But it can still shine pretty brightly.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I wasn't bored and I didn't feel myself missing a second player, but I've rarely played beat 'em ups multiplayer, which is just sort of indicative of me. I just never found a lot of friends that just want to play beat 'em ups with me. So I think they just got bored with it most of the time. I had a few here and there that always made it a little bit more fun, but it never felt like a requirement for me. So I was okay going through single player, but of course it would be more fun. Honestly, my first impressions was, okay, where's jump? And turns out the controls are my biggest issue for this game, where it's fine for the most part, because weirdly enough, it's all contextualized on which way you're facing. If you're facing to the right, the A button is hit right, and B is kick back. But if you're facing left, all of a sudden it's B is punch ahead and A to kick back. Like you're always going to attack in that direction with the button you're pushing in that direction. And eventually your head wraps around the idea, because I'm so used to the concept of, yeah, I hit this button, attacks in this direction because I'm facing this way. But it's not in this game. And I was like, okay, how do you jump? And you push both buttons at the same time. Okay. That takes care of that.
It's very, very weird controls to get used to. But I like what you're saying too. I really liked that they well, I mean, maybe against what you're saying actually, but I really like that they did so much with just like two buttons, or even I suppose the D-pad as well. But
see, yeah. I did like the idea of being able to like kick behind you rather than turning around. I thought that was great, but it never clicked with me which button I was meant to press, because it's so confusing, because the control scheme changes if you look left or look right, and I was fumbling the entire time with that.
I eventually got the hang of it, but the thing that was killing me quite literally is that there are some stronger enemies in this game that just kick the crap out of you, and you only your typical punches are only going to get you so far. You will get slaughtered by these guys because they'll interrupt you, toss your butt around, like you are just in trouble if they get a hold of you. So you can do like your jump kick type thing, and then I accidentally realized that if I jump and then hit both buttons again, you'll do a spin kick. Great, does a lot of damage, except enemies have this deadly ability known as ducking, and they will duck over most of those attacks unless you get it properly set up. But then I also found out that there was a third kind of jumping attack that is extremely powerful, and I would love to be using this at any time that I want, but I could never get it to come out consistently. And that is a drop kick knee. Like you just knee them in the chest, and they go flying across the screen. And it is such a powerful hit. I'm like, I want to do that all the time.
Doesn't it feel good, like when you pull one of those off in the right moment too?
Yeah.
Like, and the character just, like you said, literally soars across the screen, and it could be like a powerful enemy too, and they're just gone.
Yeah. Like, enemy variety is pretty good. I like how they all sort of drop different things. Like some of them drop mines that detonate, and you can throw them back at them. I love that stuff. But when Big Chungus comes out, I don't know how to deal with that guy. Like, I try and punch, I try and jump and kick, and it only sometimes works. I just sort of flail my way through until eventually I manage to get a couple of hits in. But no, I can't deal with Big Chungus over there.
So was that the toughest enemy for you? Was what we're calling Big Chungus right now?
Is that the one just the bigger guy that's sort of more tanner skin? I don't know. It's not a Bobo, but it's a Bobo-like.
There's two big guys. One big guy's he's fine. You sort of punch him. And then there's Big Chungus who comes in, and it's just
okay,
like,
so we got Schwarzenegger and Chungus. Got it.
Yeah.
So which one disappears?
That's the first boss.
Yeah, although he reappears another time.
But he's easier to take care of because it's on a set of platforms that start falling away. So I just get myself on the right and just try to get a kick where he gets into the spikes and dies.
I really like those moments. The helicopter was good at that too. Like you don't have to go like dead on and fight them. You can sort of lure them into a trap, and I love that stuff.
I really do want to correct as well that initially I was very bored, and I think I was like just so craving playing with somebody else. And I think like going into it, I was like, oh, it's a beat 'em up. I like playing these multiplayer. I think I'm going to just inherently like have a worse time. But then after the helicopter level, I think it did really start to kind of freshen up. There was some platforming in like one of the later stages where I just like I was rewinding so much.
Blocks.
Yeah.
Disappearing
and like
blocks, spinning,
crossing a lake and getting it's a Castlevania-ish jump, except even more stiff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like, beat 'em ups having variety isn't a bad thing. Like I think Battletoads can pull it off at times, and it's fine for the genre. But for the most part, like enemies don't deal massive damage to you. So, like in general fights, it's pretty rare that you're going to lose a life.
Yeah, that's true.
But in platforming bits, though, like you just lose it. Like you don't like lose a hit point; you're just dead.
That's true.
And those jumps are pretty tight. Like it's quite hard to land a lot of them. If it weren't for Switch Online, I'm not sure I would have bothered.
No, that's the thing. This game is. You have to just play it again and again and again in order to learn these patterns, learn how to deal with each of these enemies, and just basically just become perfect at the game. Because I was amazed at the fact there's no health healing. There's no way to earn extra lives. Like I rewound the entire time and beat the game.
Oh, sure.
And you get points, but you never get extra lives, and there's no continues. You lose those 3 lives.
Oh, really?
You're back to the beginning. Because
this was an arcade game though, right? So like it was
initially
designed around,
about quarters and whatnot.
Yeah,
but there's usually there's like continues, but there's nothing like that.
Yeah. I went and looked too, and like I don't know if you checked online to see like how the game compares to the arcade version, and it looks fairly authentic. I mean, graphically it's like a much better game, of course, because just like that's what the era did, you know, as far as arcade and home console ports. But yeah, it seems fairly the same, which I actually, for the record as well, I played the regular difficulty, like warrior or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I went and tried the harder difficulty, and I made it to like chapter 5, and I was like, yep, all right, I'm GG.
Yeah. So I beat this game. Beat this game 3 times. Because I played on normal difficulty, got to the final boss, and I was like letting myself die on occasion just so I could more easily beat them. But by the time I was like, when I lost my last life and realized, oh, there's no continues, I rewound as far back as I could, and I was stuck with 0 lives to get through the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to the final boss, I had 1 tick of health. And the problem with that is that he has a possession attack that you cannot avoid. It was a dead game. I could not win.
Is it unavoidable? I found if I jumped around...
I jumped around as much as I could, and he would always get me.
And when you say final boss, are you talking about like the purple clone of yourself?
Yeah, the purple clone. So I played again, being a lot more liberal with my rewinds this time, beat him, and then I got the message, this isn't the true ending. Beat it on the harder difficulty to get the true ending.
And that's when I said, I think I've had enough.
Yeah. I'm assuming you realize this too, but that I rewound to make sure that I wasn't crazy and like didn't press a button. But that screen, like that message, the full text that's like, ha ha ha, you like nobody can beat the game on the hardest difficulty. That screen appears. I timed it on my phone for 3 seconds.
Oh no.
So like, you couldn't even.
Yeah.
It's really a blink and
yeah,
it's a blink and a miss it moment. Like if you do that back in the day, you're like, what? Like, Mom, where's your camera? Please, I need to read this.
I need to develop in 2 weeks.
So like you don't even if you were a kid back then and you did that, you might not even like you'll beat the game and you'll be like, well, where's my girlfriend? What happened to her? Because
she's dead.
The game said the game said she was kidnapped. And then that she died, and then you go to the trap room, and then the trap room's like, I think I heard her voice. Is she there? And then it does the thing, right? Of like, come back next week and try the harder difficulty.
Yeah, and at first the harder difficulty doesn't seem that bad, but then you get a little further, and it's like there is a few more enemies, and they hit harder. It is rough, and I made my way through. I beat the damn thing.
Gosh, well done.
Because I wanted to see what happened after the shadow boss, purple guy. And you get a guy who's just like, you beat that, and I think you find Marion, the girlfriend who supposedly died, who's calling out to you.
She is alive.
So, well, no, because it turns out
my
the
gosh.
villain, the Shadow Master, is a master of illusions. So he was playing tricks on you this entire time. So you go after where she actually is, and as soon as you go to greet her, he comes out and is like, it was all a trap. I fooled you. Screw you. And then you fight him.
So she's really dead.
And yes.
Okay, all right. I'm here for this. I'm here.
But you fight him, and he has an attack that I swear to God takes off 5 pips of your health.
Damn.
He hits he has an
in
attack
comparison
where
to
he
everything else,
disappears
that's
and can hit
crazy.
you just out of nowhere, and he has 2 forms, like 2 phases.
And they're both in like the same string, right? Or same chapter or whatever.
Chapter.
Yeah.
You don't get health in between or anything like that. You are just, it is a straight shot of you're fighting him, these 2 forms, you have your lives, that's it. And that's how you're going to get through this. And I managed to beat him, and he just like, you beat me, I died, whatever, you beat me, but I'll come back and get you again, or something like that. I forget exactly. But basically the idea is you get some sort of prophecy that if the double dragons reach the sky, an angel will deliver unto them something. I forget what the exact words were.
Oh my God.
And it turns out she's really dead. We have to go. But what does that mean? Suddenly an angel comes from the sky, and here's Marion. She's alive again. Literally delivered by angels to be alive again. It's just like,
This woman
the fight will
has
continue
died
on.
and been born again like 4 times in this game.
Wow. I mean, that was so. As I was mentioning earlier too, like I grew up with this game. I've kind of always had the cover like ingrained in my head because I just remember seeing it a lot, and the cover's pretty for NES covers. I think it's pretty cool. But so when I saw her on the cover, or in the intro when they say that she's kidnapped and then they say she's dead, I'm like, wait, what? She's on the cover of the game. Why is she? Why is she
that's
dead?
Why it's
what do
the
you
revenge.
mean?
We need to get revenge for her.
Right.
It all adds up.
If only I realized. You're right.
But it's brutal.
So,
it is so hard.
when it
I
comes
can't imagine
to-
being this normally.
That
Yeah.
shadow boss, how does that work in co-op? Like, I don't know if I remember correctly, but does the second player take control of the shadow, or is that something else entirely?
I think that's the first game. I think that's what the first game is famous for. If you play it in 2
Oh,
player.
you fight for the girl at the end.
Yes, you fight
Yeah,
who
yeah.
gets.
Like
who gets to
Splinter
have the girl.
Cell co-op mode. Whew, except for there's no girl, there's just money.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, that was very random.
I've never played Splinter Cell, so
It's great. Sorry, I just spoiled some
no,
things.
it's all right.
It's good.
It's a cool. All good. Yeah, there's a few games like that. I think Streets of Rage did. If you get to the end of either Streets of Rage 1 or 2, the final boss offers like, join me and rule the city together, and you can either say yes or no. But if one player says yes and the other says no, you fight each other at the end, and whoever wins, that's the ending that you get. So if the person who agreed gets, to join up with the final boss, you get the bad ending. If the guy who said no, you get the good ending, but your friend's also dead.
That's cool. The reward, if you win, you just get to put your name in the credits.
Yeah,
Or
you get
not in the credits,
slightly more
the
points
high
or
score.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get to take their points or something like that. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, has its own charm, but yeah, the game is brutal, and the platform and the fact that you can die instantly from bad platforming makes it just even harder.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it seems like we all. I think we feel the same on this. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But if we were playing this on NES, maybe we wouldn't be so kind to the game, or
Maybe.
yeah.
I think
Go
a
ahead.
big problem with all of our experience here is we're all playing alone, and I think this probably is something that you should play with someone else. I think there's also a big charm of the game. Like when NES Online came out in the first place, when it was just NES Online and there was no Super Nintendo Online or N64 Online, we all just sort of said, like, it's cool to have these games, but these aren't games I want to play with other people, because most NES games with multiplayer, like, it's turn-based. Like, you die in Super Mario Brothers, it's the next person's turn, and there's so few actual co-op NES games out there. And so stuff like Contra and Double Dragon kind of dominated that space. So especially for the era, I think Double Dragon was incredibly impressive in that it was actually something you can play with someone else at the same time simultaneously. Whether that brings everything else up is another question. I don't really know. But in terms of just the single player experience, I think it's fine, but nothing that special.
I think that's most beat 'em ups, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
some can definitely stand out, but there is that fun of just beating up guys together.
And I could see pushing through it, like, being, having cracking open a couple soda pops and having some late night pizza.
This is a sleepover game. It's like, John,
yeah.
Zion, we're gonna beat this game tonight. We're gonna stay up until we beat it as many times as it takes. Let's get good at this. And just
Yeah.
Mom said we can have pizza. Yeah. That's
6
Stay
a.m.
up
was
all
like,
night.
oh
Absolutely.
God, we're down to one life and we're at the final boss and he's just kicking the crap out of us. What do we do?
Are you explaining something from an alternate universe? Because that sounds very real.
I mean, I've done that with friends before, where I just stay up all night playing a certain game, just trying to beat it. So
Yeah.
it's good memories. Never with Double Dragon, of course, because like I said in the on our preconceptions, my only experience with Double Dragon really was the cartoon. So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
This is other than seeing gameplay, this is my first time actually playing a Double Dragon game.
Nice.
So.
The other thing I forget as well is that we didn't really spend that much time realistically. I mean, like Derrick, it sounds like you spent the most time potentially out of all of us just from like replaying the game over and over.
Switch Online tells you if you hover over the icon and press X, it says how long you spent in the game.
Oh yeah.
So mine was 35 minutes, so very short.
That's a single playthrough.
Yeah,
that is how long it takes
I think
to
I'm
beat the
probably.
game. I'm probably about
right
90
there.
minutes ish for me just playing the game, but that's again getting through the entire thing. You get to like level 4, you lose all your lives, you're back to the beginning, try again.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. With the playing it the old school way, you've got to learn their tricks. You got to learn how to exactly pull this stuff off, or you break out the game genie.
Yeah. We can be too soft these days.
Honestly, I think
I
I think a lot of
I
these
can.
games benefit from being on NSO.
Yeah.
Like,
Zion's just saying that today's culture is weak. Everyone's too soft. This game's too woke.
There was
Oh,
something
God.
so simple, right? About that is another thing actually I really like about Double Dragon is that kind of like Ninja Gaiden, there are some like pretty cool not character sprites, but sprite work like in between chapters as well to kind of like carry that story on. And I wish we got to stare at them for longer than 3 seconds. But yeah, I did enjoy that because I think back in the day, like I remember the days of like living for a cutscene at the end of, or like in Final Fantasy or seeing like the end credit scene and seeing, I don't know, 2 characters hold hands on screen that I liked or something like that, I think Double
Cutscenes were
Dragon's
like
got some of that
rewards
too.
in that day. Like you had to fight to get that cutscene, whereas now, like you've got to fight to get to the gameplay.
Yeah, because you can just look at the cutscenes up on YouTube. Like, I mean, the developers probably uploaded them themselves. So
probably at this point. But yeah, I'm curious. It's a shame that we weren't able to play together. We just didn't find the time to play together this past week, so we can.
well, now we have to at some point. Whenever
We need to
we're all in the same
fund,
room together.
Let's do a fundraiser for like just like a GVG sleepover stream.
Yeah,
where we all
GVG
get
Street, where
together.
we just go through.
Or get together in our PJs, order pizza.
And we're just going to play through every single NES game.
Every single.
Yeah.
We'll just start at the beginning, start at A's, and see if we
can
can
do
beat that, and then move on to the next one until the sleepover's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the rewind function's there and save states. So come on, how hard can it be?
How hard can it be?
That sounds like a great YouTube video in the making. We beat every Nintendo Switch Online game in one night.
I don't know how many games that is, but that's a lot. Some of those games are longer than others, for sure.
A
Yeah.
little bit.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, Earthbound Beginnings
God.
would take longer than a night in itself.
Yeah.
But
I was thinking about that. Would have been really fun if we got Earthbound Beginnings, because John got Earthbound last time, and you're just an Earthbound fan. So it would just been
right.
like, something about Earthbound with you two. I don't know.
Although we could get Mother 3 via the Japanese online.
That is
sort
Do
of
you have Mother
try-
3 in the in the list?
Well, no,
Is it in the
not in my
rotation?
list, because I don't have any
Okay.
Japanese exclusive games, because
Okay.
we kind of have to be able to read most of them.
Sure.
It's a lot of RPGs that we don't get. So we're missing out on some Fire Emblems. We're missing out on Shin Megami Tenseis and whatnot. So
Famicom
so much
Wars.
good stuff. But
That's
yes.
a cool one that should be on there.
yeah, it's a shame. As for Double Dragon 2 itself, I mean, it's a beat 'em up, so there's not always a whole lot to say, but I think I mostly enjoyed myself. I thought there was definitely charm about this game, and the rewind definitely staved off too much frustration. My biggest issue is I feel like I could potentially beat this game on my own if I could just figure out how the heck to do the dang knee kick or the knee that sends enemies away. I'm able to do that constantly. I'm in heaven. I don't need to worry about anybody.
I thought I figured it out for a while, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is great. I just gotta like line it up right." And then I completely lost my groove, and I can't figure it out anymore. But that was sweet. It's a good move when it works.
For sure. Anything else we want to say before we give our final verdict on Double Dragon 2?
I think it's a pretty good game, and I like that it's available on this service because it's one of the few games that really benefits from online. Like, it's nice just to be able to play these games on the Switch, but some of them, like N64 games, really benefit from just being able to play multiplayer whenever you want to, and that's the dream. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think as well for me too. Before I spew my closing thoughts. I think I went into this with a negative mindset as well, because I like playing beat 'em ups with people a lot. So I went into it knowing that it wasn't going to be like as good as it could be for me. Even I think I mentioned in the last chat or the earlier part of this video as well that it was around it was February, I think, of this year. I was back home and I got to see two of my cousins playing my grandpa's NES Classic or Switch or something like that. And they were playing Double Dragon 2 and they were having a lot of fun together. And so I think already I was like, which I mean, I could have done that. I should have said, hey, let's play together. But I didn't. And that's on me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the problem with being adults. That's why we need sleepovers.
True. That's true. You guys, you really should do that. That'd be a great idea. Steve has a house, right? Or something?
Yeah, Steve's got a house. Yeah.
That works.
That's
there you go. All good. All right. Well, we gave a bit of closing thoughts, but we got to make this official with our final verdict. Would you recommend this as an N yes-o or tell people to stay away with an N oh no? John, let's start with you.
It's complicated. I think based on the way we played it, I would say no. But if you are playing it with someone else, I think that this is something that probably would be quite fun. But I have a complicated relationship with beat 'em ups in general, where I have fond memories of like Golden Axe, but I didn't play the Simpsons arcade game until like 5 years ago, and I've heard so many good things about it. I finally got my hands on it, and I just kind of thought, this is okay. There's nothing too special about this. So maybe I come from a viewpoint where I'm not like a mega fan of the genre, but I had a good time. But I think you can use your time in better ways than playing Double Dragon 2 on your own. So from this viewpoint, I'd say no.
What about you, Xeon?
It's interesting because I was expecting John to say yes, because I think I did have a good time playing this single player in the end. I think, like I said, I think I walked into it with the wrong expectations. But then like the level variety and the wackiness of it all, and even just like the complexity of the moves, really, even though I couldn't figure it out, it reminded me of a simpler time where games just didn't like try so hard to be, I don't know, not be something that they were not. But it did surprise me in places. But that being said, I don't think I'm going to go back to this at all. Like, I want to go see that final boss and get my butt kicked by it once, but I don't want to do it alone. So I think I probably also would say no. But if you did have somebody else to play with, I think it could be a fun night.
I guess I think I'm going to be the lone yes here then, because I mean, there had to be a reason I played this 3 times. There has been some games I've gotten on this service that I've just like put so little effort into because I just did not enjoy it. And I went through this 3 times and just wanted to see it all. And it helps that it's a breezy playthrough. If you're using a rewind function, you will beat this in a half an hour. It is not a big, it's not a huge investment of time. And I think if it was playing it as it was, as it was on the NES, I don't know if I would be as quick to recommend it. It's good, but you will have to deal with a lot of frustration. The frustrations in this version, of course, get lessened quite a bit, which helps a lot of NES games throughout this service. But even just playing alone, there, like I said, there was a bit of a charm there. You had the goofy cutscenes. It just didn't take itself too seriously in all of its different ways. Why does this guy disappear and then come back when you kill him? I don't know, but there it is. It's sure, why not? It's a fun kind of silly. It's not like super silly, but it's NES silly. And, trust me, there are far worse games that you can play on this service. And I had a good time with it. So yeah, I think it's worth at least checking out.
That's a good point. I forget that the NES has a lot of like side scrolling beat 'em ups, and maybe like John was saying earlier too, maybe not, most of them weren't co-op.
Yeah.
And this one is.
My direct comparison is my NES beat 'em up growing up was TMNT 2, and I would certainly take that game over this one. But that doesn't mean this one's bad. It's just that one's just so much better.
I had TMNT 1, and I used to think I was just bad at games for playing stuff like that.
No, that is I didn't beat that until the collection that came out because it's just so hard.
Well done though.
But yeah, I always love the arcade game just because it's just so much fun to beat 'em up through things. Just have all those beat 'em up moments. But hey, the controls, I could actually do the powerful attacks there that I couldn't do in Double Dragon. So again, it's not the best of the beat 'em ups on there, but I think it's also one of the earliest. So there's a reason for that. Yeah. But yeah. Either way, what about all of you at home? Have you played Double Dragon 2 before, or was this somehow your first time? And before we go, where can everyone find you at? Xeon, plug away.
I make videos over at Nintendo Life, if you didn't potentially know already. And I don't mean that as like a cocky thing. I just know that we have a lot of crossover, which is really, really nice and just organically very cool. I've been working on this crazy big Street Pass video for the past like couple months. And even before that, it was all like filmed last year. It's almost done. So if you get the chance, please go watch that when it's live. John makes an appearance, I want to say quite a bit, but maybe not in the grand scheme. He'll find out eventually. But yeah, it should be a fun time. So
for sure. And I do it anyway. John, plug away.
My name's John Cartwright. You might know me from Xeon's Street Pass video, which you can see on Nintendo Live.
That's what they're gonna be saying.
Yeah.
I do videos over at Good Vibes Gaming. We put out a video recently about replacing the Wii's motion controls, which you can do via Homebrew, and map them to a GameCube controller. That's pretty rad. You can also find me in Cat Quest 3, the video game. The demo is on the Switch eShop. I voiced the pirate narrator. They messaged me one day saying, "Can you do a pirate voice?" And I said, "We'll see."
No, what you need to say is "yar." It's like, yeah.
I haven't played the demo yet, but are you in the demo as well, then?
I'm in the demo, yeah.
So if people download the demo right now, they can hear your voice.
They can hear my voice. There's going to be a few other video games this year. I don't think they've been revealed, or at least I can't talk about them yet. But there's other stuff coming.
That's exciting. That's super exciting. That's cool. Well, thank you both for joining me. And if all of you joining us enjoyed the episode, let us know in the comments, and please consider supporting us at patreon.com/gvgaming, which includes our live audience tier that will allow you to watch Game Club live as it's being recorded. But now it's time for the Wheel of Games to choose next week's title, as I'm joined by my special guests, Naveed Mohebi and Trav Guy. Are you both ready to see what game we're playing?
I'm terrified, Derrick.
Good.
I am absolutely ready.
A healthy amount of fear is always necessary, but I've learned over the course of this show that there tends to be more good games than bad, but we can still totally get a bad game. So let's bring up the wheel and give it a spin. What game are we playing next? And it is going to be Spanky's Quest for the Super Nintendo.
What?
Is that the squirrel one?
That
I have
is
not heard of
monkey?
this
No,
game.
it's the
that is the
monkey.
monkey one.
It's the
So
monkey one.
we're gonna monkey around. So yeah, there you have it. We'll see you next time as we cover Spanky's Quest for the Super Nintendo. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.